It is indeed actually a category that G2 recently created. So we were actually collaborating with them about the category creation. So yeah, I invite our listeners to check out the category and check out the grid, and you'll see leaders as GetAccept.
Before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part, you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free. And now, back to today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Cassiotis, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Thomas Igou, who is the head of content at GetAccept. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, George.
So before we get started, as we do with every guest here at the SaaS SEO Show, could you please share a couple of things about you and your background?
Yeah, sure. I think the thing about me that gets the most intrigue every time from a personal perspective is that I have 5 kids. I am French. I lived in the US my whole teenage years, and I've now been living in Stockholm for 13 years, and I've been at GetAccept for about a year and a half.
Okay, I think that pretty summarizes everything, your whole journey. So what is GetAccept? Who's using the product and who gets the most value?
Yeah, so GetAccept is what we call a digital sales room platform, and I think we'll go a bit more into DSR as the acronym when we talk a bit more about category creation. But what the platform does is it helps salespeople to win more deals by creating the best virtual buying and selling experience, from sales qualified leads to customer. So really, if you think about instead of having a mess of different email threads, PDF attachments, links, slide decks, videos, proposals, e-signatures, agreements, all through email, the DSR is a one link kind of microsite or a centralized location where the sales reps and the customer communicate, share content, collateral, agreements, proposals, quotes, where you can also invite other stakeholders into the room. So it's a centralized location to close more deals, really.
Okay.
And so the main users are sales reps.
Okay, that makes sense. I have 2 questions here. The first is like, it sounds to me with all these different use cases that or to put it differently, I will start with my second question. Would you say then that what you do, the fact that you touch on so many different use cases, would you say that this is category creation? It's a new category, because you also mentioned digital sales room, which I saw is a category that exists. I didn't know that it exists in G2, and I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a category creation in 2 senses. So one, because it is indeed actually a category that G2 recently created. So we were actually collaborating with them about the category creation. So yeah, I invite our listeners to check out the category and check out the grid, and you'll see leaders as GetAccept. But it's also a category creation from a product perspective, because it's not something that really existed in the market previously. So what we do has a combination of many features that you can find in other categories. So of course, for example, ourselves, for a long time before the DSR category existed, we found ourselves in multiple different categories because we provide e-signature. So we were competing with the PandaDocs and DocuSigns as an e-signature solution. But then when our customers got the product, they saw we could do a lot more. So we were also in proposal management or contract management and video and chat, because we offer a lot of tools to personalize the experience between the reps and the buyers. So you have a chat function, you have a video function when you send your proposal, and these kind of things. So I think what the DSR category does is it kind of streamlines or centralizes this kind of new feature or kind of new solution into one category, which makes it much easier for us, because when we were talking about our solution before, people thought it was a lot of different solutions. So you could get either the video and chat or this and that. They didn't really grasp that it was one kind of centralized solution, everything into one.
I would like to dive a bit deeper into that, if you don't mind, and ask for people who, may listening and may be interested in creating a new category in G2, because it would make things easier for them. How does the process works? Like, do you reach out to G2 and ask them and explain the situation that, we are playing in different categories, and we also happen to have a name for what we do, and we would love to have a new category created by you. How does that work exactly?
Yeah, I mean, it goes a bit above my paycheck as well. I mean, it's a lot of networking, to be fairly honest. Our founders who went through the Y Combinator in Silicon Valley have a lot of connections, and when it comes, so it's networking connections, using your network, really. That's on one side, doing it directly with G2. It's a bit of sponsorship as well. Then there's also the fact of, when it comes to the name of the category in itself, we actually didn't even know what it was going to be called until it was officially released by G2, because there are so Gartner has also done a research paper on digital sales rooms even before the category was announced by G2, and there's different companies who call it different things. So we call it digital sales room. Thankfully, G2 went with that option for the category, but there's also deal room, virtual sales room. So even from a naming perspective, which has huge impact on keyword research and SEO later on, we kind of, had to wait before we went full on with our content creation, because we didn't know which road it would take. So even that was quite interesting as well, like the waiting game of, which one will it be?
Yeah, I understand. And I didn't know that it works, kind of like this. And at the same time, I didn't know that, obviously, because I'm not in sales, I didn't know that there are different things, there are different ways of calling, let's say, this category. Some of them you already mentioned. But
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And I would like to know, from the moment you locked, let's say, the name of the category, and now you're the leader of this category, like, have you seen an actual impact on how, mostly I want to understand mostly on how you're perceived by potential customers who are evaluating solutions?
I mean, it's hard to track, number one, because I mean, obviously, I check on SEMrush, for example, search volume month over month. So of course we see metrics, or you can search, Google Search Console, these kind of things. So we see that there is, more impressions, higher search volume. You can search on social media as well, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit. Are people talking about it on socials and stuff like that? So of course we see more traction, but it takes time. So the category was launched about a year ago, even less. So it's not, overnight everyone's going to start talking about it, unless we, spent millions of dollars doing a Super Bowl commercial, which we're not really planning at the moment. So it's a lot of educating via what we call wedges in. So, DSR has different features. So say, for example, one of them is electronic signature. So we keep talking about electronic signature, bringing an audience interested in electronic signature that fits our persona and ICP. And then once they're hooked in, then we go in and explain, well, how that fits in within the whole digital sales room aspects. But to only talk about digital sales room, obviously, other than us, our competitors, and G2A and Gartner, there's not that many people yet, Googling what is a digital sales room. So you need to understand what are they looking for that actually the digital sales room is the answer for. And so that is via the different wedges in, as we call it.
I think that's smart, and it makes sense. Like, you have to go to like approach it through something that's already known, and people have verbalized, they know that this is the solution to a problem that I have. And so you approach it through the use case, and then you get them in. And once you get them in, you let them know that, you know what, this is just one thing that you are looking for. There are so many other things that we happen to call digital sales room, and at the same time, we happen to be the leader in this category in one of the most trustworthy, let's say, review sites for software companies.
Yeah. Then you do have on the flip side, being the creator of the category, being the leader of the category, we do see it upon ourselves to to hold the torch and really be the ones educating the world, as in within our persona and ICP, what is a DSR, so that people, even if they don't know what it is, that they start hearing the term, the acronym, what it is, what it does, and start being intrigued by it. So that because if we never push it, then no one else is going to push it. So there is also a lot of work around just brand awareness around the category, and that means collaborating with partner companies, really spreading the word, doing a lot of campaigns on social media through email marketing and these kind of things. So just tomorrow, for example, or the day after tomorrow, we have a webinar in the US that we're doing with G2, where it's purely brand awareness. What is digital sales room, talking about the history of the category creation and these kind of things. So it's not product centric, it's really about the term and the creation of the category.
So we have an SDR, a DSR for SDRs, as I understand it. And my, I don't know.
Just to correct you there very quickly, it's actually more for AEs than SDRs.
Okay.
So the digital sales room really starts from once you've identified a prospect and you're going to have, a first meeting. So usually it's you kind of open the digital sales room after the SDR has done the discovery call and is handing it over to the account executive.
Okay.
And then it really aligns with the AE sales process. So it's from his first or her first interaction with a prospect all the way to closing the deal.
So DSR for A's, let's change it. I always thought, and I would like to hear your thoughts on that salespeople as an audience is a very tough audience to sell to, even though I think that deep down they want to believe that there is something better that can help them sell more, that can help them close more deals and so on. But at the same time, I think that they are the type of audience that can sense BS from a mile away. And that my question is, how do you ensure that your content actually resonates with your audience and is not considered fluffy and superficial and something that was written by someone who is who has no sense about sales?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things to kind of answer on that is, and from a personal perspective, I actually think being in the SaaS industry, it's much easier for me to work in a company where I'm either selling to marketeers or sales, only because there is a lot of personal experience I could bring to in my content. Whereas if I worked for a company that was, say, in cybersecurity or those kind of things, I have no idea about IT security. Today we get a Slack message that we need to update our Apple computers because there was a security breach, and I need to ask, how do I do that? Because completely ignorant on that. But I think you need to resonate with your audience. And I mean, I'm not in sales, but I did work in sales earlier in my career, so I do have personal experience. And when I did it, it was 12, 13 years ago, so it was really boiler room type. We actually didn't even have computers on our desk. We just had a phone with printed papers with the script and leads printed from like Excel. So I can definitely relate to the change today, where there are so many tools available to automate and facilitate a daily salesperson's life. But then also the other part is, I mean, we are a sales company. The biggest department in the company is the sales team, so we have so many resources available to utilize in-house to resonate with our audience, and we do that all the time. If I need to write a blog post about something and I'm not sure, then I have 70 people that I can interview, get quotes from, even without reaching externally to customers, prospects, or whatever. So I think that helps a lot, because then we use our sales colleagues in our marketing channels and communication to resonate with the audience. So then it's sales talking to sales directly. So, and whether organic or paid channels.
And I assume that your sales team, like, they must be using the tool as well, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they use it on a daily basis. So actually now we're doing user research about, how the tool is being used as a digital sales room. And the first people we're doing the research with is our own salespeople, because they're the ones who know it the best, who use it the most. So yeah.
They are your power users, let's say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's very interesting. I think it's the first time I hear something like that here at the SaaS SEO. So now I would like to discuss content strategy a bit. Can you please describe the main pillars of your content strategy? For example, it may be content for search audience, original content, as we call it at Minusia, the podcast that you have. And also, I would like to hear if you have any learnings so far about on marketing and by implementing this strategy.
Yeah. I mean, the main strategy, or say if you want to have like a purpose or tagline, is really organic for high intent. So that means we want to create content regardless of the format or the channels that resonates with our audience and that will bring traffic to us. And whether that's directly on the website or on our LinkedIn accounts or whatever channel. So that's really the number one. Then when it comes to more going into more details of how or what exactly we do it, it's a lot of testing, tweaking, trial and error. So yeah, when I started, one of the first things I did was launch a podcast. And so I make sure the guests are not necessarily customers, but or personas or ICP, so then it will resonate with the people that we are targeting with. But yeah, the blog, I mean, we're constantly trying to work on, I mean, repurposing, content from webinars or podcast. Webinars is another big kind of thing that we do quite often. Trying to do events as well. So we sponsor events, we organize ourselves events. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different channels, email marketing, these kind of things. But I think many people already know these channels. It's just testing them, tweaking them, seeing what works best for you. Some people, want to be really funny. Some people want to be very educational. You can be a bit of a mix. You can, yeah.
It seems to me a bit difficult, especially for like sales and let's say all the different use cases, digital sales room aside, all the different use cases that the product covers. It seems to be a bit tricky because I assume that all these, let's say, use cases and categories, or however you want to call them, they're pretty saturated, and like competition, at least from an organic standpoint, may be very intense there. So I would say that, like, I would assume that you have, okay, you can do that, but you have to do something else as well, because like it can't be just SEO, let's say in your
No,
case.
it cannot be just SEO. And I mean, just from an SEO perspective, obviously you need to mix it up between obviously you'll have some keywords that have high search volume but are thus very competitive, but then you have finding more the niche keywords that maybe have lower search volume but are not competitive at all, or more long form keywords, but even competitive keywords, if you really focus on them, uh, it is doable. And we see it when we kind of lock in on, okay, we want to focus on this keyword, then we create a mini content plan for that keyword to really beef it up, and we work a lot with the web team and the brand team to redesign the pages and stuff like that. So we see traction. I'm not going to say quite easily, but if you put in the efforts, you get the results. It just, you cannot put in efforts on thousands of keywords at once. But it's also, we're doing a lot of work on that right now. So we're migrating to CMS to kind of restructure the site architecture and these kind of things. So it's because it's also keyword is one thing, you have more technical SEO from the web perspective that also has a high impact. But yeah, I mean, then you have a lot of other channels. Just working with partners, I think it's something that everyone could do a lot more, because you can hammer your database or your kind of email list as much as you want. But I think collaboration with companies that kind of target similar audiences but are not direct competitors, that's one thing that a lot of people should do a lot more. Yeah.
I agree. I don't want to give away too much. I hope our competitors don't listen to this episode, but we have like double, triple down on partnerships and collaborations and everything in that spectrum. And the results are just astonishing. I really do think that finding ways to collaborate with other companies at the same like at the end of the day, you want the same things, to the same thing. The main objective is to grow. It's one of the smartest decisions you can make, and at the same time, I would say it's cost efficient as well. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't cost the same as like running paid ads or anything
No.
of that sort. So I agree with you on that.
I mean, you have content syndication platforms where, of course, you need to pay to be part of, but then you can always find mutually beneficial companies to collaborate with, where it will cost you nothing. It will be they write a blog post for you, you write a blog post for them. Can be as simple as that, or it could be a lot more, doing webinars together, email newsletters, cross collaboration, these kind of things. So I mean, it's just to be as flexible and open-minded as possible, and making sure you're targeting companies that will have a relevant audience for you.
Yeah, there has to be an audience overlap, obviously. Now, I would like to focus on the content that you have on the website and ask something that I would like the answer, myself, first of all, to know how you approach it. On your website, you have 4 different content hubs, one of them sales enablement hub. And my question is, how do you decide what content will go in each hub and what content will go in your blog or any other section of the website?
It's I mean, I can give you the direct answer of why and how we have these 4 hubs. So 3 of them pre-existed before I started at GetAccept. So it's more, you can kind of see them more as an evolution of our solution or platform. So sales enablement, because when we started, that's what we categorized ourselves as. GetAccept is a sales enablement platform. Remote selling, because that was niching down a bit more, and also with the whole pandemic situation, it was a good keyword to rank on because everyone was working remotely, and actually that hub is ranking very well. It's on page 1 of Google. And then we have the electronic signature, which was more niched, and it's what we see kind of our most popular feature in the past couple of years from a customer perspective. A lot of people are finding us via e-signature. And then the digital sales room hub is the one that we created last. We created it last summer. So that's how these 4 happened. What I can say about the hubs is I actually don't really like how our hubs are structured actually. So yeah, we actually, as we're migrating to a CMS, it's a long-term project for kind of Q1, but we've already now started with kind of initial planning and how the website will be structured. So we actually had a very long workshop last week with the web team, the product marketing team, and our CEO, which shows the company's involvement in content and this kind of thing. And one of the things we discussed actually was restructuring the hubs, because the way they are now, it's actually very static content, very time consuming to create because it's templated landing pages. So that means before you can launch one hub, you need to have all the sub content already ready and prepared in advance. And the only dynamic part is all the way at the bottom, you have a section pulling blog posts from the blog that are categorized as the hub category. So that is, so we're not adding a lot of new content in the hubs other than when we create a new blog post about digital sales room, then it will pop up there. But that is only one very small segment at the bottom. So and if we want to create new content, then we need to restructure the template. So we need to involve the design team and the web team. So it's very time consuming for everyone. So we're looking into creating more dynamic pages that might be more like a blog page that's like an ultimate guide, where it's more much easier than I can do it myself directly in HubSpot, and I don't need to involve other teams. So then we will probably have a lot more hubs about a lot more keywords that we want to target, but it'll be more flexible and more dynamic and less time consuming for the team.
I agree with that, and this is something that as an agency we see with our clients, the fact that in most cases you have more control, editorial control over the blog. You don't have to involve any developers or anyone, like maybe a designer, even though that's not always the case. While if you want to create a new section of the website, a new topic cluster, for example, or a hub or whatever, well, you may need development time. And in most cases, unfortunately, taking or requesting development time for content initiatives is not something that companies do. So I get you. And, shameless plug, but you should check out a case study that we published, I don't know, a couple of months ago on a hub that we built on product launch. The general topic was product launch.
Yeah.
A hub that we did on Viral Loops, which is a client of ours. And the results were just astonishing. No hardcore design or anything, just very good execution on both sides. And it's one of the main drivers of traffic for the website right now. It's going tremendously well. But of course, the thing is that content creation is one thing, and we pay too much attention to content creation, but we often forget content promotion and making sure that the content we create is distributed. And I would like to know what you and your team does, on a content promotion level. How does your content distribution plan change, for example, based on the content format? Because I can assume that you have a different plan for a content piece that's created for a search audience vs an original piece of content, a study, a survey, or whatever.
It's I mean, again, there also you have different layers, because I think there's a lot of different terms that people kind of interchange but actually mean different things. So you have promotion or distribution or repurposing, but then they don't necessarily mean the same thing. I mean, if I create a blog post, I want to promote it. That's one thing. Basically, it means I want to drive traffic to that blog post. If I want to repurpose it, it's different. Basically, it means I want to cut it up, use a small part of the blog post and create a series of LinkedIn posts. But then the goal there is not necessarily to drive traffic back to the blog post. It's more to showcase that same thought leadership I showcase in the blog post, but showcase it on LinkedIn. And, on LinkedIn, the less links you put, the better. So it's even better not to put a link back to the blog post. So it's also, first off, it's different things. Repurposing, it means you have one piece of content and you use it on different channels, but you're not redirecting traffic back to the original source necessarily. So also people need to keep that in mind, because sometimes I hear a lot about, repurpose. Yeah, we have a blog post. Let's repurpose on different channels to bring traffic back. But then you're missing the points, because the point is you want to showcase leadership to your audience on LinkedIn. Doesn't matter the blog post exists. Ignore it completely. When it comes to promotion, I mean, we've struggled with that a lot, like everyone else. Obviously, we have the most common or traditional channels, social media, email, partners, these kind of things. But what I'm trying to do is kind of mix it up. First off, what I did over the summer is just create a spreadsheet of all the distribution channels that we have in the company. So that means actually reaching out to people, because I think one of the most forgotten ones is communities or forums. Myself, I'm on like 6 or 7 different Slack communities for, content marketeers or, digital marketing or whatever. So and ourselves, we have so many salespeople and so many people in the marketing team that are part of communities for salespeople, like Rev Genius, Pavilion, Sales Hacker, these kind of things. So that's, I would say today, like dark social, if you want to call it, best way to distribute content. And every community will have like a shameless promo channel, so you can just throw your thing out there. It's stupid, but it's like super simple and easy. Then you can have different things, getting the salespeople, give them a good blog post and they can share it with their network and their prospects, because they also want to show that they know their shit. So sharing content is the best way to build trust and build relationships with people. So I would say it's less into, I mean, you need to mix it up, but don't think about just like the big database lists that you can have, like email or your corporate account on LinkedIn or Twitter, but more the, more smaller one-to-one, like, okay, well, John in sales has a good network on LinkedIn. Maybe he can promote it from his account, or he can promote it in these communities he's a part of. So it's trying to find these kind of hidden gems that people haven't targeted. And then, of course, always testing, trying out new things. For a long time, I was looking into Reddit, for example. It's a very tricky channel. Now I'm looking quite a lot into and testing Medium and Quora as channels for distribution as well. But there is, depending which audience you're targeting, just finding these kind of more communities, I would say.
I like that. And I like that because it's not something that, like, definitely we don't often talk about here at the SaaS SEO Show, but also I do believe that, I also do believe that there is a lot of value in communities, especially Slack communities that you mentioned. Now, I happen to be part of a few of these communities myself, as a marketer, let's say, that are mostly focused on content and SEO. But I can only assume that there are such communities for sales, in your case, or for any other niche and industry, let's say, that a company may want to target. So
yeah,
I think that,
and I would say actually, if the community doesn't exist, it's even better, because then you can just create it. I mean, we're internally talking a lot about community creation and what does it mean to own a community, because that's also another word that can have a million different meanings. But I mean, there's a lot of Slack communities for sales, but if you're targeting a niche and you ask around and you see there is no community for it, then create it yourself. That's even the best. I mean, it'll take a bit of time to build it up, but once it's there and it exists, then you own the channel even. So yeah.
I like it. I like it, and I agree with you. I couldn't agree more about that. I see a lot of value in communities for SaaS companies. Now, on a completely different topic, back to the website, I would like to discuss something with you with regards to. It seems that you have a main website which has a .com extension, and then you target different markets. For example, the French market through translated versions of some of your pages. I would like to hear your thoughts on localization. What is your overall approach to localization? And at the same time, how do you decide what pages you're going to translate and what pages you are not going to translate? Is it merely based on, I don't know, keyword research and search volume based on a keyword data provider like Ahrefs, or is it something completely different?
Yeah. So it's a bit of I'll give you a direct answer, but it'll be a bit of a long answer because it's also about how we are structured as a company. So we have the .com, which obviously it's the main website for most of the world, but it primarily targets the UK and the US markets because that's where we have foot on the ground, so to say. We have a sales team dedicated for the UK market and a sales team dedicated for the US market. So anything that we do that is lead gen or demand gen or however you want to call it, but that will get MQLs in that we can redistribute to sales, then that goes from the .com for the US and UK. Then we have a big sales team in Sweden because we are a Swedish-based company. We have a sales team in Denmark, in Norway, and in France. So then we have localized websites for these markets. So we have a website in Swedish, in Danish, Norwegian, and in French. And we have, up until last year, we had local marketeers for each market. So we had, we have a lot of marketing people that are Swedish in the team, but we had a dedicated marketeer for Denmark, Norway, and France. Since about a year ago, we kind of transitioned slowly out of Norway and Denmark because they were very small audiences. So now it's more like a Nordic approach, but they still have their local websites. And France has 2 people, one in my team, which is a content marketeer, but for the French market and based in the same office in Marseille as the French sales team. And then we have a local marketing coordinator who's in the demand gen team, also sitting in the Marseille office. So they have, daily interaction with the sales team. They work as a group, but they're part of the marketing team as well. So when it comes to localization, it's a collaboration between both of, on the .com, we have these pages that are super important. They need to be localized. We don't call it translated because translation is more, word for word. You change from English to French. Localized, just, explaining for the audience. It's more, you have this piece in English and then you adapt it to your local market. So localization could be, you take 3 different blog posts in English and you turn it into 1 blog post in French. Or sometimes we create from scratch also in the French market. So they write their own original piece of content. And sometimes we might even, could be a good piece of content that we translate from French to English. If it's, really good, and it could work for the English market as well. So, and when it comes to more practical details, so we have local French marketeers who will write content in French. They also work with an SEO agency for the French market. And for Denmark and Norway, it's actually where we are struggling a bit more because we don't have local marketeers. So we're actually tomorrow, we just bought a new tool called Localize. It's a localization tool. It's actually more the product team that bought it, but we're also going to use it from a marketing perspective. So we have our onboarding meeting with them actually tomorrow. So I haven't used it yet. I don't know how it works and these kind of things, but now we'll be able to do more local content for Norway and Denmark and even use it for the French and English market as well.
To be honest, I expect it's like a more basic answer, let's say, but
Yeah.
this sounds like a very sophisticated way of structuring teams. We have this here; they are based on the location, and they like this is like well done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's a struggle when we have very important pages, say like our product pages or these kind of things, where before we used to we had this notion or idea that everything had to be ready at once at the same time. So if we're going to do the new product pages, they need to be launched in every market at once, because we also felt, if we have the new product page in English, then the Swedish and French and Danish and Norwegian sales teams will be jealous if they don't have them ready. Then we realized it's just too time consuming, super stressful, because then it's so much work for everyone. It means we need to get the English version ready first, super early, so they can be sent to the local markets and localized. Also, the web team and the design team who need to do all the images and all the implementation, URL structure, meta description, all these things. It just was very, very stressful. So now we usually do US or like English and Swedish first, because these are two biggest market from a language perspective. And then the other markets have a bit more leniency in terms of it could be 2 weeks or a month later, but then they have a bit more time also.
Yeah, which is okay.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 weeks or so is not something important. So
No.
as we are running out of time, I would like
Yeah.
to hear a couple more questions before we start wrapping things up. The
Yeah.
first one would be, you have vast experience when it comes to content, and since you are at a SaaS company that grows pretty rapidly, I would like to know, what do you think the future holds for SaaS content and SEO?
Good question. I haven't thought about a good answer, to be honest, but I think it will be uh well, as we call it, like our big focus now is efficiency, working smarter, not harder. So you can kind of take it however you want, but it means really focusing on the basics first. So a few mistakes I made when I started GetAccept is I didn't do a content audit straight away. I waited like 9 months before I did it, which was really stupid, to be honest. But once I did it, it was super helpful. We had a very long project from day one that I started, which took a year, was to redo our personas, which were pretty old and outdated since the product had evolved. So these kind of basic things, having a content audit, especially if you're running a content team or a website that's been running for a while. We had like over 300 blog posts just in English, for example, and then you have all the local market sites and all the product pages, customer testimonials, these kind of things. So it's kind of use the resources you have, work with partners, collaboration. No need to kind of like throw money into sponsor the biggest event and this and that, but really focus on what will bring results, but also keep time to test new things, try out stuff. Launch a podcast if you don't have one. Do it for 6 months. You can do it in a fast and cheap way as well. And if it doesn't work, drop it or tweak it. But yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And I would like to take a snippet of your answer, especially for content audits, and share it with prospects and clients, so that they can understand that these things are really important, especially when you have an existing content inventory.
Super time consuming, but super important. I mean, we spent my whole team like a month doing it, and it's tedious work, but it's like a crash course into your content, because you see stuff you hadn't seen because it was written 5 years ago by one of the founders, and it's like an amazing piece that might need just a few tweaks to like rank better, or so yeah.
I agree with you. So my last question would be, what can we expect from GetAccept in the near future? Anything exciting that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the exciting journey, we've already started it with the category creation launch earlier in the year with G2. So I think hopefully, you hear about GetAccept, in other different channels, and then you remember this podcast and you're like, yeah, GetAccept, I know it. But I think it's more, yeah, keep an eye out for Digital Sales Room, because it's I mean, not just GetAccept, there's now more and more competitors. I mean, Drift came into the game. I know Oracle have launched a feature as well from part of their CRM as well. So we see, which is, exciting. And of course, you're like, oh, big players are coming in. But for us, it's exciting because it means, big companies are looking into this and want to get into the game. So it shows we're doing the right thing. So it's more making sure that we stay as the leaders, even if these other companies come in.
That's
So yeah,
exactly right. Like when the fact that you have competition means that you're doing something right, because these companies know their stuff. They wouldn't enter like this
yeah,
category, let's say, if they didn't know that there's potential there.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's I mean, it's an exciting time for for sales and for marketing and for SaaS. So I'm super excited for the future, and I'm super excited to see where we are in like a year or 2 years. I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be amazing.
Let's see. Maybe we'll have a follow-up episode
Yeah.
in 1 year's time. The last question that I have for you, as with every guest, the call to action for our listeners: where can people find out more about you and get in touch?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way. Um, I'm very respondent. I love to to connect. Sorry. So even from more a personal perspective, like I try to do, one new call with a person within my network or through communities, just to learn, brainstorm, share, and stuff like that. So yeah, you can reach out on LinkedIn. You maybe mention in the note that you heard me on the podcast. It's always nicer with a personal note as well than just a cold connection request. But yeah, reach out on LinkedIn is the best
That's
way.
great. We will drop it in the show notes. Thomas, thank you very much for being on the show. Many new things, I would say, that we haven't touched on and discussed previously here at the podcast. So thank you very much for that. And looking forward to all the great things that you're going to do with digital sales room, this new category in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, George. It was a pleasure.
Before you go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this episode, Ahrefs. Ahrefs provides you with an all-in-one SEO toolset that does everything from rank tracking to backlink analysis, keyword research, and technical audits. The best part: you can now use Ahrefs Webmaster Tools for free to identify and prioritize optimization opportunities for your website, see all the keywords that your web pages are ranking for, take a close look at the websites that link back to and refer you in their content, and analyze other websites to find out what drives their rankings. Visit ahrefs.com/AWT and sign up for free.